Welcome! I'm Jade of Jaded Reader, and today I'm going to be going over fantasy series that I really want to continue. These are books where I have read the first in the series and there's a lot more going on, but I haven't gotten to it yet. A really good example of this, but I will just leave it as an honorable mention on my list because I've mentioned it so many times, is I would like to read the sequel to Crown of Feathers by Nikki Paparetto, which is Heart of Flames by Nikki Paparetto. I have talked about these a lot. I have talked about how much I want to read them a lot. I will go ahead and toss a video up there where I talk about these more, but I can't talk about them right now. Now that that's aside, let's go ahead and get into it because I have quite a few books that I'd like to talk about and I would like to read very soon. The first up on my list is Guineveres Deception. This is by Kiersten White, and the sequel called Camelot's Betrayal, I believe just came out. I've been seeing it everywhere. It's an absolutely gorgeous cover. I mean, so is this one. It doesn't appear on camera very well. I kind of wish these were matte, but that's besides the point. Guineveres Deception follows Guinevere, obviously, but this Guinevere is very different than other Guineveres in the fact that she does have an ulterior motive to marrying the king, which is King Arthur. This is an Arthurian legend retelling that is absolutely fantastic, a little bit sapphic, and out of this world good as far as cherry picking different pieces of Arthurian legend to weave together a really great tale. I want to get to the next book soon though, because I have been able to feel my interest waning despite the steady, loyal feelings of my enjoyment. I do want to get to this soon, and it's at the top of my list. After that is a book I really am surprised I haven't read more of, considering how much I loved it and how long ago I read it. And that is The Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. Despite the long name, I can say this is an absolutely pragmatic, practical, analytical fantasy book that really is a fascinating new way of reading about dragons. You have the woman Lady Trent, who is a scientist to her core. She is involved in science. She is absolutely fascinated by dragons, and when she marries her husband, all she wants to do is go on an exploration with him in order to discover new species. This book was so different and unique, and I absolutely adored it, and I can't wait to figure out other ways that different dragons are described and where Lady Trent's adventures go. I really just felt for these characters while also very much so enjoying the story. And where it leaves off, it could go anywhere, and I could go anywhere with her and we could explore dragons together, and I haven't done that yet, and I'm honestly kind of offended. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Jade. I love dragons, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to this book. After that is a series I more recently read, so I'm giving myself some compromising understanding here. I understand I have a lot of fantastic books to read. I just read this next book, but the reason why I picked up this book in the first place is because of its sequels and how much hype I'm seeing around them. I have Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. I loved Wicked Saints at the end of it. This is the only book where I can say it was at about 70% of the way through that I ended up enjoying it. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars because it should not take that long for me to like a book. But when I did like it, I liked it a lot. And I think that this series is going to really jump off. Ruthless Gods being the next in this series. I think the third book is the one that's just coming out. I think I might be wrong. But really, the sequels to these books, first off, are fantastic looking. I love a good cover. And this is actually my Owlcrate edition, so the fact that the covers match all the more is really exciting for me. I also can say that this did leave off on a cliffhanger that I would like to explore further. Wicked Saints follows a girl named Nadia who is a cleric, which is able to hear the voices of the gods and call upon them and their different magics. Nadia is part of a kingdom that is under siege, and she must infiltrate the rival kingdom in order to help stop the war. We are also following the character Seraphim, who is the prince of the neighboring kingdom, and he is trying to not stop the war, but definitely trying to stop his father, who may or may not be trying to kill him. These two, while having very different objectives, definitely have a common thread of needing to stop Seraphim's kingdom from destroying what they care about, and I found Wicked Saints to be, again, like I said, quite boring up until the last 70%. I felt like it was a lot of portal travel, not where there's actual fun portals, but where like they would just end up up in one spot to the next. It was kind of world build dump conversation and not much else. I didn't feel a connection to the characters, but that does pivot around the 70% mark almost exactly, and things picked up really well, and then things took off, and then the ending happened, and I was like, wow, okay, where's the next one? While I don't recall all the content warnings I had for this book, I did have them in my recent reads, and I will go ahead and have it listed up above, but the main one I do remember is cutting and bloodletting. There is a lot of blood and ritualistic magic in this, which also alludes to cutting not for blood magic purposes, but for self-harm. So keep that in mind when picking up this book, but I definitely want to read the next one, and I don't want to wait until I forget about these characters to join in on the fun. If you have been following my channel, you will also know I am currently reading the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. Unfortunately, I was part of a different readathon that ended up sputtering out, is the kindest way I can put that, and I was in the middle of reading the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. The Mistborn trilogy took me by surprise. I did not know how I was going to feel about Brandon Sanderson's books, and then I started Mistborn and I was like, whoa, okay, these fighting scenes are out of control good. And this series started off really, really well. The entire first book, which is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, was a 5 out of 5 star read for me. I fell in love with one of the characters. The perspective was really interesting to read from. It was a fantastic book. And then we kind of changed gears when we restarted the readathon in order to finish the last in the Stormlight Archive series for the next book coming out, and I fell behind. The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson is a really complex world that has different magic systems based off of different types of metal you eat, and then there are people who can ingest all of the different metals and use them all simultaneously to have a super powered self. Vin is a character in this who is Mistborn, so she is able to take on all the different metals and use them, and she becomes the somewhat protege to another Mistborn named Kelsier, and together with a ragtag team of I don't know what exactly they are. This turned out to be kind of a heist book, despite it being more of a revolution. They're heisting a revolution. I'm just gonna say that The Final Empire is really gritty, really fantastic, has top tier fight scenes, and I did not see the ending coming, and I need to read more of it. And it is part of the larger Cosmereverse. I think I was supposed to read these first, but I didn't get to. So I want to get back to them soon, and I think I will do it as soon as I am done with the Stormlight Archive series. I can only read so many 1,000-page books at a time, but I'm looking forward to doing so. It was hard to not keep going. Last up on my list, I can say I am avoiding out of fear. I am absolutely terrified to continue this series, and it is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang? She can write a horrible scene in the best of ways. I mean that as a compliment. I was disturbed while reading this book pretty much the entire time through. And like the times I was enjoying myself, which I would say is mostly in the first half, I was still pretty wary and there was still like a lot of terrible things happening. I just heard how horrific this book was, so it seemed nice in contrast. The second half of this book is brutal, and when I finished it, I wanted to continue on, but I also just couldn't bring myself to it. I needed time to breathe, and I'm reaching the end of that time. The third installment of this series is coming out in like a week or so, I think. Again, if she's lying, I'll put it right there. And I really want to get back into this world. I think Dragon Republic? Gosh, I really sound like I'm just making this up as I go. This was a really fantastic book. The Poppy War follows Rin, our main character, who is incredibly ambitious and trying to get into a military academy in order to better herself and to better her status in her world. There is more than ambition inside of Rin and a more fantastical power, and one that she needs to harness and control, or it will control her. This takes place during a war that is styled after real world history, and I caution you to look into the politics of this before going into it. I also don't want to give you this summary without also saying that in my wrap up, I do have content warnings for this book. I don't want to try and list them all here because if I miss one, I will feel really bad because all the content warnings in this are really bad. This was brutal and scary, and I'm ready to jump back into the world because I don't want to miss out on it. So the next book in this series is a must get to, and I really want to get to it soon. Those were my top 5 series that I really need to continue, and I would love to know if there's any sequels in a series that you really want to read but for some reason haven't gotten around to. I have various reasons for these, but overall I want to start waiting until there's at least more than one book in a series before I start reading it. And part of this thought comes from a video I just watched of Becca and the Books, so I'm actually going to link her video down below because it was really good and kind of gave me an epiphany on how I'd like to read in the future, and that I would like to wait until more books in a series are out before I even start it. Thank you for listening to me talk, and I hope you're enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are, and until next time, bye! The Poppy War is... How do I explain the Poppy War? I'll try again. Lighting is really dark in here. Despite my very vibrant sweater, it's like... what was I saying? I'm wrong. That's not what I wanted to say though. That will have every Virgo stirring in their loins. I should not say Virgos are stirring in their loins. Virgos will get uncomfortable in their seats. I'm so sorry.